Hi, everybody. Welcome to the R&A Live. It is March 11th and it's noon. I'm on the East Coast right now. We're waiting for Coach Roberto. And today we're going to talk about international travel tips from, training to travel hacks to ways you could get around jet lag, and then go over some things in the Tokyo 2025 marathon. For all of you that are interested, if you have questions, please, feel free to ask them. We like to keep this really interactive and engaging. We don't necessarily need to save the Q&A per se for the end of this chat. Roberto's here. We're gonna have him on in a second and kick it off. Beautiful weather here on the East Coast. It's solid. Almost like San Diego, to be honest. Roberto, wow.
Hi.
This always happens. Either you're outside, I'm outside, and it's funny because we're both on the East Coast and it's beautiful out. Gives me even more of a reason to be outside. I feel guilty now.
Yeah, why are you not?
Just because I went for a run, showered, was talking to basically my sister-in-law or soon to be sister-in-law. Whoa. That just kind of came
All
out.
right.
And yeah,
Got some
and
news.
now there's nothing new. And now we're here and this is just yeah. Um
Oh,
but
there I am.
it's what a
I can't even see myself. There's so much sun, but I'm enjoying it. So,
oh my gosh, you need some some shades, right? Don't you have like crazy
um,
what are they, Ray-Bans?
yeah, they're in the house somewhere, but no, I'm just enjoying baking my face a bit and maybe taking my feet have not seen sun in months. They've been in tight shoes and snowboard boots and not trail shoes, treadmill shoes. So,
Okay.
yeah, no, I'm rocking shorts for the second day in a row, so it's good. I'm happy.
Shorts weather. Listen, I always say anything above freezing, 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, well, I mean, my threshold is I want it to be warm. I want to feel the sun, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I wish I wasn't so embarrassed of my feet right now.
Well, I mean, this this chat doesn't have to turn into a OnlyFans feed. I'm just saying, like,
Oh
I love
my
being
God. Oh my
barefoot.
God. Oh my God. Let me stop you right there. And we're not going to turn this to an OnlyFans feed, but I have to say one thing. I think I'm
Uh-oh.
living under a rock because I learned what OnlyFans was like literally within the past month. I didn't even know what
Really?
it was. I swear on my life. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
what? I was like, what
That's
is that?
that's
And then I
awesome.
learned about this thing. I'm like, that's so wild. No offense to anyone on here, but like, whoa. I was like living under a rock, just guess,
I
you
mean,
know?
yeah, there's a negative connotation to it, but originally we started to give creators provide like um unique or special access to like only their fans, so like create content only for their fans, and it was like subscription or paid or whatever. But as you can imagine, is primarily turned into something completely different, and yeah, so
Yeah. So we'll leave that at that. And no, this is not turning into the foot thing. But what I was getting at is marathoning, since I just ran the Tokyo Marathon, I think I'm about to lose my left big toenail now. And so that should be fun when that finally, you know,
congrats.
pops off. Thank you. On the
I mean,
toenail
on
or the
Tokyo,
race?
not the losing of the toenail.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Yeah. I do want to say like a couple things about the race. I'm gonna make it really short. Like
Or make it as
couple.
long as you want. This is your moment, you know? I'm sure some people watching either live or afterwards will have run Tokyo or getting ready for what's next in the
Okay,
world majors, Boston and London.
Boston and London are next.
Yeah.
So yeah, two things. Okay, fine. I'll take your lead on this. So, who? Okay. The course itself is absolutely incredible. I think that, obviously like the race conditions on race day you can't control, but like being out there, seeing all the architecture along the course, hearing like people scream in Japanese, whatever, I'm sure some different languages that I didn't understand. It was kind of like incredible in an odd way. And there was people all along the course, just like New York. Actually, I enjoyed Tokyo more than Berlin, just because of like what I saw. The hairpin turns were a little bit tough. just because like from a mental perspective, like you're doing like out and backs, and like these are no like mile out and backs. These are like, you know, one was like I believe like a little over 4 miles one way, and then like you saw like the elites like galloping on the other side. You're like, oh, like let me try to be like them, like, you know, casual, they're running 420 paces, but fast is relative, right? And so it was kind of cool to see that. And also like I like the hairpin turns because everyone was like kind of cheering each other on like in the race, which made it super cool. um my last the last like 10K of the race, the last 5K was towards the Imperial Palace where it ended, and it was exposed in the sun. And as many of you know on here, and if you don't, you're going to know now, it was hot, humid, and those are the things we can't control on race day. But in the last
And
10K
how
of
hot,
America,
just for reference, for folks who weren't there?
yeah, good one. Good question.
Fine.
So um, about like mid 60s, and like the humidity was like it started to get sticky, like not New York City summer sticky, um, more like San Diego summer sticky. Yeah. So Chris, I know you're on here. Like, yeah, like that. It was hard, and it's hard, you know. Um, it's hard to do, but I feel like, you know, that actual like first of all that last hairpin, the energy of the crowd I think just carried everyone through. At mile whatever 25 was it, because it's all in kilometers, so I don't know exactly. Roberto, you're better at this than me. It's um
So, yeah, mile 25 would be like kilometer 40.
yeah, so like around there. I was like, it's always the longest mile, and this seemed like the longest mile, and there's people like, yeah, it's like right this way. I don't know how that happened.
'Cause you did this.
Oh my God. See,
Yeah.
I guess that
Yeah.
causes fireworks. Anyways,
Welcome to FaceTiming with my kids. Yeah.
oh my God. Yeah. So anyways, so that last mile was brutal, and people were like, yeah, like, you know, it's like straight down that way. I'm like, no, no, it's not. But to be honest, it was a really flat course. There are some rollers, believe it or not. I think that's because it felt so flat. Ending at the Imperial Palace was really, really awesome. What I would recommend to anyone doing this is in your training, practice out and backs. I think like from a mental perspective, because they were pretty like sharp turns. They were. And you know, some people slipped where when I was running. I know I shared a bunch of my race recaps, but like on here, I want to share a lot of like what I wasn't able to share in those, and answer your guys' questions. But yeah, they were sharp. And also like Roberto, I'd love to hear your tips on like hairpin turns just in general. But yeah, the course was great. Lots of hairpin turns. They were not like easy roundabouts. And also you want to stick to the tangents, right? So like if you're running close to that roundabout, you don't want to go all the way around because it's going to add so much distance, and also like cost you a lot of energy at that point in the race at any level, you know. Sub 5, sub 4, you know, sub 3:30, like, you know, doesn't matter. Yeah, what I will say, and I might not be allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
It's
Um,
your
I was speaking to two.
show. Come on. It's your platform. Let's do it.
It's our
Well, I just
show.
mean like you have the mic right now, so like speak your
My
truth, whatever it is.
okay. I'll before the mic drops, I will just say that multiple people walked in with handhelds. Two of my athletes. I'm not going to disclose any names, but people
Handheld
got
meaning what? Bottles?
handhelds, meaning like hold
Okay. We'll be right back
like
after this message from our chair sponsor.
handheld meaning knees, like literally like
Okay, a
what
handheld
I
bottle. Yeah.
yes, like what I was training with, like not like a plastic bottle, handhelds. Now, um,
Were you not meant to or allowed to?
in the runner's official handbook and at the expo, they were saying no because of like litter and trash, but like no one's gonna throw these away. There was people handing these out along the course, like it was kind of a free for all. So just for anyone who plans to run Tokyo in the future, just letting you know, like, yeah, I would honestly just hide it in your throwaway clothes. Like when you go through the like whatever metal detectors, it's almost like TSA. I walked through, they didn't even check me. Like they did not even check me. I'm just saying. They didn't check two people I know. Just saying.
So quick,
Yeah.
if you hide it in your clothing as you're going into like the start village area, I'm assuming, then where are you filling it? Because it's just flat and empty, I assume. So then are you filling it in the village via
No,
water fountain?
no. You want to fill it before.
So you're just saying hide it in your clothing fully full, just
Correct.
walk in all lumpy and hope
Well,
they don't pat
yeah.
you down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I was nervous of, and that's why I didn't walk in with mine. And that's a good point. So for um one of my athletes who is a male, he said he just put it in the back of his shorts, they didn't pat him down. For me, I put a smaller one, half this size in my sports bra, and I just thought that they would think I was busty or something, whatever. They didn't even like check me. Like what I mean, they didn't even pat me down. I looked like I was wearing like layers. Like you couldn't really tell.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, what I would say is just put it like in your pants or like your sports bra, honestly.
All right, folks,
Um,
you got it. Keep it in your pants if you're doing Tokyo.
exactly. There you go. Okay. And in terms of the start, it could be a little hectic. So I would recommend, going in like to the starting area with water and like waiting to go through the security um, until you chug that water. They do have water and Pocari Sweat at the start, but it was really hard to find. One woman like handed me this Pocari Sweat that someone handed to her, and she's like, "Hey,
What
I
is
don't
that?
know where I got this."
Bacard?
So Pocari Sweat is the electrolyte drink that is made and used on the Tokyo Marathon course. It is their equivalent to Gatorade.
Okay. It just
However,
sounded like Bacardi. So I was like,
oh,
yeesh.
sorry, I might be tired because I slept 4 hours last night.
Lucky. No,
No, we don't do
I was
that.
kidding.
Um,
Okay, cool.
Pocari,
Oh, Pa.
Pocari,
I thought you were saying Bacardi. Okay.
Pocari, Pocari,
Pocori.
Pocari. Okay, you can
Yeah.
find it in anywhere, and it has uh an interesting. I don't like it. Its flavor is bleh, personally, but it does the job, I guess. And yeah, starting village, I would recommend getting there early. There are limited porta potties.
Limited relative to other world marathon majors, or like, what do you mean? Just in general?
I went through gate one. I was in Corral C. I did not see. I saw maybe I want to say roughly between 20 to 30 in my corral. Maybe there were some outside of the corral, right? But like, yeah, not a lot. Not a lot of place to do your warm up. Another thing. So before you go into your corral, I would highly recommend running around outside of there. Yeah. Um, yeah, no, but beyond that, everything was super buttoned up and organized. What I will say is I am fully aware that for anyone running slower than a 3 hour and 30-minute marathon, which is super fast, they ran out of water cups. Again, the world majors, we love them, but that's just not really fair to a lot of runners and not being able to have handouts. So this is why I'm bringing that topic up for many of you because it's something to just be aware of if that does happen and you run Tokyo. I want you to have handhelds. We want Roberto and I want to see you crush it. And so maybe have someone on the course or maybe like use those tactics that I just mentioned so that you don't, you're setting yourself up for success later on in the race when you might not have water, right? And they're telling you to drink out of your hands because that's what they
Drink
were
out of your
doing.
hands. That's,
Yes.
whoops.
Yes. What's going on there? Whoa. Yeah.
My tripod.
Um, so yeah, no, it was a great experience. I was going for like a 252, 251, and I didn't have my what I needed electrolyte wise the second half of the race. I'm not blaming anything on that, but that's what I had trained with. And so that's what my body also needed. I know with it being like humid and hot, I know I have a high sodium loss. My sweat rate is like I lose like 1600 milligrams of salt per liter of water in not so great conditions. And since I was pushing the pace and under those conditions, I was probably like depleted a little more. Also, with my luck, my salt tabs in my right side pocket, I picked them out and the whole bag just like fell. And so, fortunately, I had two in my left, like two, like versus like 11 that I had had in my right. And I used those and then just relied on the Pocari Sweat. The course again, I used like my wisdom that I had, kind of had from other marathons and training, right? Like when I have bonked in training, just to like know, okay, like what can we do to set ourselves up to like nail this mile? What do we need? Um, I grabbed like four Pocari cups at one point, like just to give you an idea. Uh, yeah. And one thing that was really big in Tokyo that I saw was like the hand signals, like people like acting like cars. Like I felt like in Berlin, people were just running into each other versus like a lot of the men in front of me were like left, right? And like so it was like very clear, like let them go
When they're gonna
left.
grab an aid station, or when the course is going left?
When they were going to go grab anything or when they were just moving left, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, like so I thought that etiquette was pretty cool.
yeah.
Um yeah, and aside from that, um yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to say. I am hungry for what's next, but I'm also really proud of like what I personally was able to do and everyone else was able to do because it was a tough day out there. It was, yeah, it was hot, hot.
Well, we're heading into the warmer part of the year, which I'm not upset about, as I'm obviously sitting out here
Mm-mm.
contemplating getting down to a tank top. So
Oh,
yeah, but
damn.
good job to you.
Thank you, Coach. Um, yeah, no. So, does anyone have questions about like Tokyo or, anything non-marathon related? Because I could tell you right now, Roberto and I did a live and he actually spoke to like the 7-Elevens, but like they were fire. Oh my God. Like I literally spent half my time in them.
I mean, I guess what people are maybe thinking of questions, one thing I could address, which you asked about hairpin turns, because we might have different takes on that, it sounds like.
Hmm.
Um, Mine essentially like I guess two schools of thought. Obviously, whether you're going for a time or experience, like hairpin turns is something you have to, if they're on the course, like a Chicago is one that immediately came into mind, obviously Tokyo. It's something that you have to essentially navigate before you get to it, whether you know the course or not. Like, in theory, you see it coming, again, whether you're familiar with the course or not. So I would say there's two things. Either you try to take the shortest route, which a lot of people try to do. Um, and the pros in that is that you are covering the least amount of distance. The cons is that everybody has, or a lot of people have this similar idea, and then it could get pretty crowded and bump into each other. And also, you're making it so tight that you run the risk of like tweaking a calf, the outside of your calf, ankle, whatever. Another runner maybe stepping on you because you're obviously, not stopping on a dime, but like coming to a stop quicker and then trying to accelerate out of it. So those are the cons of that. And then what I prefer to do is either be somewhere in the middle of that. Again, if there are a lot of people, if you're leading the race, have at it. Or if you find yourself with like somewhere in the course where there's ample space, and again, have at it. But generally, if you're in a pack, I would say try to get to towards the middle of it, where it's like you're not at the shortest point, the tightest turn, and you're not also going 6 miles around the corner as well. But that way you could kind of just let your momentum and the energy of the group just like naturally just take you around the turn. It makes it gentler going in and gentler coming out. And regardless, there's still probably the possibility of some bumping, but you can kind of just like protect yourself a little bit with your arms, to
I
your
always
left
say
and
elbows. Put your elbows out.
yeah, I mean, I say your arms because like I'm not interested in like accidentally elbowing another runner, but like if I protect my space, and also I'm usually carrying in one of my hands a handheld and sometimes maybe even a phone. So like if I just have my hands next to me, I create like a mini cage where it's like, okay, if you get this close, we're gonna bump, but beyond that, like I'm not breaking my form too much. So that's usually the one I opt for, but I sometimes just prefer to take the slightly longer route just because I know it's the path of least resistance and I have a clear shot coming out of it to then pick whatever hypothetical lane I want to go into. And also, um, it just gives me more time to ease into it and then come out of it, and I could accelerate more gradually. So, yeah, I rarely try to take the inside just because, like I said, it's more crowded and, yeah, and I actually for Sydney Marathon, there was at least two turns like that that I'm thinking of. And then Berlin, trying to think if there's a point like that, tight turn like that. But I mean, I've certainly run them before, like tight turns. The ones I'm thinking of more recently was the Staten Island Half Marathon,
Ooh,
which is like 4 weeks, 3 weeks before the New York City Marathon, and that one like you're out on, I think it's Papadonna Boulevard, going out by Ocean Breeze, and like maybe close to 10K, and you go out, and then you literally just turn around and come back. But yeah, so
yeah, interesting.
that's my take on tight turns. But
I
again,
like
it's something
that.
that you can't, I mean, you could practice in long runs and such for, as you said, like the out and back, like the mentality side of things, or psychological side of things to be more accurate. But practicing a turn on your long runs or in training is going to be really hard to duplicate what it feels like in a race because unless you have like a big training group or people that you could just hire to like meet you at a corner and bump and turn with you, it's hard. It's the sort of thing you just adjust on the fly, especially because regardless of how fit you are, you don't know when you're coming to this turn or that turn, who's going to be around you, how many of them, how aggressive are they going to be, or do they have the same idea as you? So, like I said, it's just for best to just like pick your line and just protect your space.
Yeah, I love that. So coach of you. Yeah, no, to just piggyback off of that, I agree. I think that you could, if you put yourself into shorter distances in like training leading up to a marathon and you like have those experiences, let's say in a race, or have those experiences running with a group of people, it might set you up for like what could happen. It's not going to be exact, but it might set you up for like less surprises and just to be like less shocked. Also, anyone who is joining on here, Robert, just to give a refresher, I'm still like competing and I'm coach and athlete. Roberto, he was a 1500-meter Olympian and like has moved from like athlete to full-time coach. He paces individuals through marathons. And so like when Roberto, I'm guessing when you say you're holding a handheld and a phone, is that for your athlete?
No, it's for myself.
Okay. Okay.
For a marathon, I need to take gels and all that because
Of
I'm
course.
out there for, I don't know, from 2 hours and 50 something minutes to, whatever time I'm running. So fueling is paramount. Anything beyond that or shorter than that, like half marathons, um, I usually just take whatever's on the course because like it's such a short distance, relatively speaking, if I'm out there for a while. Like last year, the longest it took me to do a half marathon, I ran the upcoming NYC half in a little over 2.5 hours with a first time runner. But the pace was so comfortable that I also didn't feel like I needed to fuel. But yeah, so yeah, I just hold it for myself. What I will do, especially later on in races, is if I still have some of my fluid in my bottle and they've already finished theirs, is I'll offer them mine, just to save them a trip to the aid station. Because like you lose collectively a bunch of time at the aid stations. It might be like a few seconds here to slow down, a few seconds there, or what have you, but a few seconds adds up over the course of 26.2 miles. And if you're chasing a time and you run 250 and you're trying to run sub three, for example, which, you run three flat 30 or 301, it's like, oh, could have gotten that back by just running the same effort, but holding my own bottle, which is not something I like to do, to be honest, but it's like, the pros outweigh the cons of like having to hit a station. So I usually will be carrying my bottle depending on conditions up to like mile between 18 and 20, 21. And at that point I'm kind of done with it. And it's like, all right, those last 5, 6 miles, depending on where we are, we got to go to work anyway, because that's when people that I'm pacing really start to feel it, or typically, and then it's just like do what you can to get to the finish.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And I'm gonna make a comment about that fueling for the 2.5 hour half marathon for a second.
Go for
Roberto
it.
and I have different takes on this, but I also think that people have different needs. And like I want to elaborate on that a little, in the best way. So someone working
really, really hard running a 2 hour and 30-minute marathon, like your heart rate is up, you're going to probably need more back that you're losing, more fuel, more hydration, etc. If Roberto's pacing someone in the nicest way possible and his heart rate is like 120 beats per minute, and that's like close to like zone one, zone two for him, right? He's going to be exerting less and maybe losing less. And so therefore he's going to need to give his body back a little less and he could be there for his athletes. So I think that might be like where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And that's just like the sciencey part of it. And yeah, just because physiologically, like, yes, like the less you lose, the less you need back. But it's always good to train your gut. And women and men metabolize gel and hydration a little differently. Like us women around our cycles, around our period, like our hormones are freaking crazy, like maybe like our attitude too. And we might like need a little more stuff. Versus like men don't go through that every month. And so like even if you're in menopause, like I'm sure your hormones are, acting up during certain times of the month and it's just not the same as men. So just to really dial into these strategies during your training, and to have those like not so great runs and to learn from them and to apply your learnings the best you can to those, runs moving forward. But it's all about the journey. And yeah, let
Yeah.
that be that.
And one thing I would add to that, because I totally agree, is like the half marathon that I ran last year in 2 hours and I think it was a 2:32. Like, yeah, I didn't need to fuel during, but I fueled beforehand and afterwards, to help in aid in recovery. But that being said, like, had I been running a marathon in 2:32, in theory, the time on feet is the same, but the demands are much different because now I'm traveling twice as fast, covering, a marathon in 2 hours, 32 minutes versus a half marathon. So like I am working harder. I'm demanding more of my everything, muscles, like everything, glycogen. So that I would absolutely fuel, period, but also feel differently before the race and maybe not so much after because that's just recovery, but before the race is because I would know I'm going into battle, if you will. So yeah, I think there has to be a distinction that for people watching to know the difference between like time on feet and effort on feet. So 2:32 is a respectable half marathon time. 2:32 for a marathon is closing in on elite, especially if you're a woman. So like the demands are going to be different in terms of like what it takes to run twice the distance in the same amount of time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Very well put. Now, fun fact before we go into like international travel hacks and like tips for people before we kind of like hop off, because I know like there's gonna be, yeah. Question for you. Do you
For me?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
for you.
Yeah,
So
I'm here.
just like from your background, like, cause I know like you went from like, like you have like such a big history in the sport, right? So like, do you ever bring yourself back to the 1500, that last mile in the marathon? And do you coach your athletes that way? Like, or just like try to get them to have that mindset, like, yeah, 1 mile to go, or like, how does that affect your coaching strategy?
Um, the short answer is no, but what I do as far in terms of the last mile, especially for my athletes, especially if I'm actually there pacing them, which is like the greatest joy because you're able to help execute and see it through is when you've run 26.2, well, let's say 24 miles or 25 miles, so you have 1 mile to go. I bring them back again if I'm there, but I'll talk them through it if I'm not. I'll bring them back to like the workouts that they've done, whether it's the mile repeats or the progression runs or whatever workouts they've done that went well, but also like where they were tired, but they were able to change gears and push a little bit more and dig a little bit deeper. And then and then also, again, this is not being there with it. And I also tell them like when there's a mile to go in a marathon, no matter how good or bad you feel, is just a mile. Like you could get through it, whether it's through cartwheels, run walking, sprint, like whatever it is like 1 mile, like everybody could do it because you've done 25.2, let's say. So it's like you owe that to yourself to just see it through. There's no throwing in the towel. It's just like I'm working as hard as I can to get to the finish line. Now, when I'm running with somebody, as was the case most recently in December and a few times before that, it's I remind them like, hey, because I know full well what they did. I was like, hey, we are, we have one more repetition to go of mile repeats. Or, for people who I work with who live in Manhattan, I like to start breaking it down where it's like, hey, we have one lap or one loop around Central Park left. And you start breaking down, it's like, okay, right now we're at the 72nd Street transfers, or, like I bring it down to like bite size. And it's like, okay, like we're running now from, let's say, like 90th Street on the west side in Central Park to Columbus Circle. Like you could envision that either down Central Park West or through the park. It's like that's what we have left. So like that's it. Like let's kick. And like people are able to like take themselves a little bit disassociate, but like take themselves from where they are in the moment as far as the pain cave to where they are in Central Park, again, a familiar place, and just like start counting on the streets. Like there's Museum of Natural History, there's Bethesda Fountain, like, whatever it is. And I find that people are able to like dig deeper because like even if they are in survival mode, now they know that every stride takes them closer, and it doesn't matter if they collapse after they cross the finish line, like they're gonna be done. Whereas like if you're feeling like that and you're trying to bring them to that spot too far out, like 10K to go or 15K to go, it's just still a little too far to like see the finish line, to smell the finish line, to be drawn by it. So that's what I do for my athletes. And then, sometimes for myself, if I'm doing, which is pretty rare, but if I'm doing a workout where I want to try to finish a little bit quicker, like a long run, I'll be like, oh, hey, like you're in the last mile of blah 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 marathon, and like bring it home and envision that, because I do some of that myself as well to prepare me and get me ready for different races, because I need to be able to relive that experience and also not just tap into but remember what it feels like in order to like accurately describe it appropriately for the athlete as I'm pacing them and guiding them to their finish line. And yeah, happy to say that so far it's gone pretty well.
Yeah, but minus like you getting hit by a car in the New York City Marathon, I think
Well,
we're
that was
going pretty
mile
smoothly.
19 too,
Yeah,
so we weren't. It was still early on to be bringing anybody, but yeah, yeah. I mean, that's out of my control, right? What am I
yeah,
gonna do about
right.
that?
Focus on the controllables. I know. Well, thank you for sharing
And
that.
my athlete still ran sub 3 there, and I finished. So
Yeah, and he's a
mission
huge,
accomplished.
yeah, good. Congrats to Casey and you again. Yes, and real quick, travel hacks for international races. So I'm gonna share mine, you're gonna share yours, and then we're gonna see you guys in 2 weeks because we want to be here all day, but we can't.
Yeah,
Sorry.
two
All
weeks
right. So
is 20. Oh, 2 weeks is the 25th. Okay, got it.
yeah.
Yeah, as a family birthday.
Oh,
I was just like, oh,
okay. Okay.
March is
Okay.
just full of birthdays. Tomorrow is Molly's birthday, so
I
happy
know.
birthday, Molly.
Happy birthday, Molly. I know. I know. Oh,
Yeah,
Molly's the best. Molly's Roberto's wife to everyone that doesn't know on here, and she's also a good friend of mine.
yeah.
Yes. All right. So, anyways, getting back to this travel hacks. Tokyo, I would highly recommend getting there at least a week early, at least. Your circadian rhythm, like meaning like, like when your body is used to like waking up, seeing daylight, like getting on like that like time zone and like getting used to like just like waking up and waking and going down, going to sleep at the same time every day. Like, yes, like it's good to like get on the time zone and get sleep like at like what 9 o'clock at night, hopefully 10 o'clock. But your body still needs to adjust like from where it was and like the times it was doing that during the day to where you are going. So that 14-hour time difference, let's say from New York, 17 from San Diego, it's no joke. I would recommend getting there a week early if you can and like making a trip out of it. Going and exploring and enjoying and, eating your way through, seeing the shrines, going to some museums, going to the Imperial Palace, having some fun runs, and then, settling into like, okay, Thursday, like let's go hit the expo and like get serious here. Um, yeah. Uh, in terms of like traveling, I'm very, very big on take your electrolytes and your water with you. Like we mentioned in Tokyo, like try to train with foods or nutrients similar into like what you will be eating internationally. It's hard. It's hard. And you can't be perfect, but nothing's perfect. Um, so that's what I have to say about that. And just, don't neglect eating enough. Practice what you've been doing during training. All right, Roberto, kick me into you.
All right, travel hacks, yeah. Um, Yeah, I would say like again, being mindful of maybe most of the audience who have to juggle work and life is yeah, if you could get there a week early, let's use the extreme example of like a Tokyo or a Sydney, which for most people, whether they're in Europe or the US, are fairly far trips. I would say like yeah, like echo again, get there about a week early if possible. But regardless of when you get there, 5 days early, 3 days earlier, or a week or whatever, um, just two things like oh, well a few things but one like try to get on that time zone as quickly as possible so whenever you land I think when we went the prior year we got there in the early mornings like if you want to if you want to sleep because you're absolutely knackered, just set your time, like watch for like a 30-minute nap, and like that'll help you, it'll boost you, and that should give you energy to last the next however many hours it is till the actual bedtime, and then try to go to bed at the bedtime that is normal for the time zone. In this case, let's use Tokyo. Even if you sleep 4 hours and wake up in the middle of the night, like the more you do that after a few days, you will start to be able to get on that time zone. I found same with my wife and kids. So that's one thing. Another thing is like what I try to do, aside from the nap thing, is like, it sounds like it's a joke, but it's like touch grass. Like I'll take off my shoes. Well, I'll go to like a park or something, take off my shoes and do what is called like essentially forest grounding, like just walk around barefoot on the ground and like there's science about it, but essentially like you kind of like calibrates you to like the environment, the place you're in. It helps ground you. I'll do that for a little bit and then go back to the hotel where I'm staying and take that aforementioned nap. The other thing too is before you even go on this trip, obviously if you know you're doing Tokyo or Sydney or whatever, try to do some of your long runs or key workouts in the time that the race is going to start. So again, depending where you are in the world, like that might be like the race is going to start at 9 p.m. local time. So, okay, maybe don't go out and do a 2 or 3 hour long run at 9 p.m. unless you have access to a treadmill, but maybe like try doing it at like 5 or 6 p.m. Like, again, if it's safe as far as light and location, but even doing a long run at a off hour, doing a few things like that in workouts is going to help your body get used to a hard effort at these times. So when you get to your Tokyo or your Sydney and you're trying to ask your body to run hard at what might be 7 p.m. your local time or 8 or 9 or whatever it is, your body's like, okay, we've done this a few times, like we could do it. It's not so foreign where most people understandably so do their long runs at the most ideal time in the summer, maybe early mornings to avoid the midday heat, and whatnot. So those are a few of the things that I tend to do. I know I just did it, well, not just now, it's been several months, but like I did that for Sydney. I looked at the time difference. I did a few of my key long runs at the around the time that the race was starting, which I think thinking quickly, I think it was like 4 p.m. local time on the East Coast in the USA, and that was like 6 or 7 a.m. the next day in Australia. And I don't mind running the middle of the day anyway, but it was nice because when the race came, I was like, okay, like I can do this. I've done it before. So yeah, those are some of my travel hacks.
Those are good ones. Wow. Staying grounded, put your feet in the grass. I love those.
Yeah, touch
Yeah,
grass, kids.
touch grass. I love it. Well, yeah, I can't wait to get outside today. Thank you. And, guys, thank you again for joining another chat. Like, this is actually a really good one. Lots of good tips here that we shared. And yeah, Roberto, any last words?
Yeah, so we're doing this in 2 weeks. So I'm sure there's some few people watching that are getting ready for half marathons in the spring. There's the United Airlines NYC half this weekend. I'll be running it, so I look forward to seeing some people there. But like, yeah, in 2 weeks from now when we do it, I guess we could be looking back at how NYC half went, and if anybody watching has run it, how they went. I'll be able to say what I did there. I'm still not certain, and then I guess we could start to look at some of the spring marathons. Boston will be still a few weeks away, and then like London will be almost exactly a month away. So, exciting times. And there's obviously loads of other marathons in the spring as well. So
Yeah,
it's we're getting into spring. I'm loving it. Longer days,
yeah.
warmer weather, happy
I
days.
love, yeah. And thanks for shouting out those topics. Here's to spring and daylight savings. And yeah, and we'll see you guys on the 25th at noon, as long as Roberto checks his schedule and he can.
Roger that.
Roger that. All right, guys. Well, have a great rest of your week and Tuesday, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.